This is Mrs. Sutton. I hope you're doing well. Today is the 20th of April, which is crazy. We're kicking off our new instructional schedule and grade books this week. So hopefully your family's received all of that information, but I'm also going to address some of that in this video, along with getting caught up on any work that maybe you're behind on, and also taking a look ahead to see where we're headed with ELA potentially for the remainder of the school year. So let me just start. Let me go to my desktop here. I want to start with the grading policies and how things have changed. This is not a Mrs. Sutton thing. This is a district-wide thing for middle school and high school. So if you have brothers and sisters in elementary school, they might be doing something a little different. But for middle school and high school, I will be opening up a new grade book starting today. On that grade book, you will see the Art of Argument. You'll see Hyperdocs number 1 and 2, which I'll be loading this coming week. So it won't be loaded today, but you will be seeing whether or not you're getting credit for the work that hopefully you've been doing over the last few weeks. So from now on, when you go into School Tool, you're going to see these comments here instead of a point value for right now. That way you can kind of keep track of the work that you've completed and the work that you might still owe. As far as the Art of Argument goes, you still have time to hand that in. If you take a look, at this point, I would say if you're behind, you really need to contact me so we can set up a Google Meet and talk about it. I mean, if you look at this section, I think it's a little overwhelming, but if you are following along, I kind of pieced it together like that of a puzzle. So I will be checking starting on Monday the 20th. I'll be going through all of your Hyperdocs number 1 and 2. Some of you still had some issues. You didn't hit the turn in button. You're claiming that you did. I saw that you did work. So just so you're aware, I will be clicking through every single Hyperdoc, all 123 of them, to see if there's in fact information there. I also had some students that I think they just hit the turn in button thinking that Mrs. Sutton was going to take that and just go with it. Not so much. So I will be going through each and every Hyperdoc, both 1 and 2. So give me a little bit of time with School Tool, but you will be seeing as to whether you got credit for that work or not. As far as where we're headed with English, I'm going to continue to do these SMORE newsletters. Please, please, please check them out. I may even find a way to share them out with your parents. I can do that actually via School Tool. I just need to kind of run through and do a tutorial myself. So back in classroom, right at the top, this is where I've been posting the SMORE at a glance. So it's just a weekly newsletter. I keep it pretty brief. I tell you what's coming up for the week. I include some photos, sometimes an embarrassing family photo, or a nice one. But please take a look. And I share that on Twitter as well. So it's located both in your Google Classroom and on Twitter. So I'll continue to do that. Right now, before I forget, because I will forget, independent reading. I still need you reading independently. If you look over my shoulder, I have Look Both Ways by Jason Reynolds. He did this Instagram live thing all this last week on this short story book. So good. And the short stories are really, really good. They're all separate, but yet they're connected. All of these kids do go to school together, so their stories kind of intersect at different points. So I do need you to continue doing some independent reading. Reach out to me if you need any reading materials or ideas. But next week, I'll address what I'll be looking for as far as independent reading. Our real main focus over the next couple of weeks is going to be on a short story called All Summer in a Day. And then we're going to look at 2 narrative poems. If you remember narrative poetry, that's just poems that tell a story. We do have a new schedule, like I said. So we've got kind of a new School Tool, new grade book set up, and then we have a new teaching schedule as well. I think you've heard me say this year, but I'm a visual learner. Like I need to see it visually set up. And I would really encourage some of you to maybe set up something similar if you have an old calendar at home or if you do have a paper agenda. But let me just get over here. Okay, so what I did in Google Docs, I just kind of made an overview of like a calendar for me so I can keep track of my own schedule. Because like I said, it changed quite a bit starting on the 20th of April. So from here on out, and I'm only going to speak to English, your other teachers will probably be talking to you about their schedules, but we're going to do a similar focus to what Owen's been doing at Lake George High School, where only certain days you have certain classes. So that way you don't feel like you have to go in and check every single Google Classroom, which I know for some of you that can mean like 8 different classrooms, maybe even more, which is crazy. So ELA days have been designated for Mondays and Wednesdays. And then what I did here for myself, I just have our focus. A V means a video. So I plan on posting a weekly video every Monday that'll give you the lesson for Monday and for Wednesday. I have to get my YouTube link approved. It's kind of a tedious process. So I'm just going to try to do one video and then I'll make it a little bit easier. So look for the instructional video on Monday. I also will be planning Google Meets for classes. At this point, I'm not going to do one big Google Meet. What I'll do is I will schedule times either at 10-minute increments or 15 minutes. And so we'll meet for 15 minutes and it'll just be second period. Then I'll take another 15 minutes and it'll just be for third period. I will be posting those times in Classroom. There's actually an easier way now to schedule Google Meets right in Classroom. Mrs. Stellato showed us this the other day. So if I go back to our class, and I just go to this page right here, you've got your sign up code where you originally signed up for my class. You're actually going to see the Google Meet link. When I click it live Monday morning, you will see it there. When we're done with the Google Meet, it'll then disappear. So please look for the postings. I'll put the Google Meet postings for Monday in my weekly s'more. Okay, so you'll see it there. I'll also post the times in Classroom. And then, like I said, if, say, we're supposed to go live at 9:15 for second period, at 9:15, that Google Meet link will go right here. And you can simply click on it and join in, which will be great. So let me go back to my plan here again. So again, Mondays, I post the video. That'll be the video and instruction for Monday and Wednesday. And Monday, that's the day that we'll do Google Meets. At this point, I'm going to use them more for like extra help. Do you just want to talk about what we're reading? Was there something that was confusing? My instruction will still be delivered via video. That way you can pause it. You can go back to it later if you need to. On Tuesdays, we're going to have what's called team office hours. And I think Mr. Hammond did a good job of explaining that to us as teachers. He said that think of it as like kind of the after school period where we had homework club. And you could kind of go to each of the teachers if you needed extra help. So we'll have a code that'll be available. So if you need to come into my classroom, Mrs. Sutton will have an ELA code, the similar thing for social studies, for math, home and careers, and science. So we'll have more information coming along, but that's just if you need to check in with your team of teachers. I believe Mr. Mockery will be available, or we can get into contact with him at that time too if you needed that support as well. So really, if you look at the week, Mrs. Sutton's going to be posting a lot at the beginning of the week. What I'll do on Thursday and Friday, that's where I can meet with you. If you need an individual Google Meet, we can set up that time. I'll be making my videos for the following week. That's the thing that's kind of tricky for me. I actually film prior to posting it by a few days. So I'm always like, what day is it? So that's kind of our new schedule. And again, I strongly encourage you, if you have something at home that you can kind of write down this game plan, I don't think it's a bad idea. I know my brain felt a lot better when I did this schedule this week. And I was like, oh, okay, now this makes sense to me. All right, so let's head into where we're going for the next few weeks. So I have to tell you, this is like one of my favorite short stories of all times. And we actually haven't read it in a while. Mrs. Sutton and her coffee, that hasn't changed. So this short story, All Summer in a Day by Ray Bradbury. Normally, if we were in school, I would actually probably take maybe 3 or 4 days from start to finish to go over the story, talk about it, maybe do some creative writing. They've asked us with our instruction now with this new schedule to kind of keep instruction to a couple of hours a week. So I'm really going to break down this Google slide presentation. You might hear me refer to it as a hyperdoc as well. Boys and girls, all that means a hyperdoc versus Google Slides. It's a Google slide that's like been amplified. It's got links, it's got videos, it has things embedded. So just make sure that you check out all of the slides. As you'll see, there's some bells and whistles to it. What I've done, and I'm going to hit Escape here to see if I can get out of full screen. Yay. Okay, so on the first slide, I have, for me personally, and I'm sharing this with the red team too, I have a breakdown of how I think I'm going to do each slide or group of slides for different days. The last thing I need you to do is to open this up and think that you have to go through this in like 1 or 2 days. That's insanity. And if you go back to my plan here, you'll notice that it's only a few slides each day. Okay. I'll also be posting this in Classroom for the week, and I bet you'll see it on my S'more as well, where I'll explicitly say to you, okay, on Monday the 20th, I need you to just focus on slides 1 through 4. Don't worry about those other slides. We're really going to break this down. And again, it's just because we're not in that traditional setting where I'm seeing you 5 times a week. And you also have other classes too. This is also in addition to, there should be some independent reading during the week as well. But for the next several weeks, because if you look, I'm going into May. Okay. We're going to be focusing on this short story. If you have friends on the red team, I think they're focusing on one of the poems. They're going to start with that first. Mrs. LaRue and I are just kind of having that flexibility between classes. So if you do have friends on the other team, their work might be slightly different. So back to All Summer in a Day. Such a good story. This author, he wrote a pretty famous book that some of your older siblings might have heard of, Fahrenheit 451. I'm really asking you on Monday to just focus on slides 1 through 4. So slides number 1 and 2, these give you kind of an overview on who Ray Bradbury was. I'm very jealous. One of my good friends, Jen, when she was living out in LA, she actually got to meet him right before he passed away. But she also got me a signed copy of his novel, Fahrenheit 451. So that's downstairs. I'll have to get that out for next week. But if you take a look again with this hyperdoc, you've got a link here to go to his actual webpage here. It gives you some facts about him. Please just kind of skim and scan. Yes, I just said that as your English teacher. Skim and scan through different facts about him. Also take a look. I don't know if I've got any Twilight Zone fans out there, but he's actually one of the reasons why we have that series. And you've got 2 posters here, the original Twilight Zone, which if you have not checked that out, we might have to talk about that in one of our Google Meets. And it actually just got rebooted about a year ago. CBS has newer versions of it. Also, I don't know if I have any Elton John fans out there, but I didn't realize that the song Rocket Man was actually, the lyrics are based on Ray Bradbury and his science fiction writing. Which brings me to slide number 3. Just taking a look at the genre. Remember, genre is the type of literature. So what is science fiction? I'll be honest with you. I was not always a huge sci-fi reader, not until actually my senior year. Where I actually read something by Ray Bradbury in this novel class. So on slide number 3, it just kind of goes over what is science fiction. Please take a look at it. What's the purpose? And then over here, I've asked you to answer some questions. Again, this is where the hyperdoc comes into place. It's not just like a Google slide, like a linear presentation where I just give you a bunch of information. I'm actually asking you to interact with it. So just like on slide 2, I'm asking you to click on some links here. On slide number 3, I'm asking you to answer the question. When Mrs. Sutton goes back, which eventually I will be grading this hyperdoc, I'm going to be looking to see if you have actual typing in this text box. So please make sure you're writing something that answers the question there. So that's slide number 3. And then slide number 4, it's a pre-reading activity. I just want you to jot down your thoughts. They're going to seem like kind of weird and random questions, but when we finish the story, we'll go back to it, and then we'll take a look at our answers and see how these questions apply to the actual story. I don't think in slide 4 you need to use complete sentences. Just jot down your ideas, your notes, and that'll be fine. So again, Monday's focus, just slides 1, 2, 3, and 4. We haven't even read the story yet. That brings me to Wednesday. Remember, in this video, I'm going to include instruction for both Monday and Wednesday. So if you wanted to pause the video here, you could. And then you could just go back to that spot on Wednesday. So on day 2, we're going to take a look at, all right, what are some literary terms we should be focusing in on as we're reading, as you're listening to the short story. So the main focus of this short story would be setting, so when and where the story takes place. Characterization, pay attention to the characters. We don't have a lot of characters in the story, but the characters that do talk, that do have actions, it's pretty important. There's definitely conflict in this short story. We're going to have that, character versus character conflict, but we're also going to see some internal conflict. We're going to see some conflict with nature too in this one. And then finally, we're going to take a look at mood. So how do the words that Ray Bradbury uses, how does his tone then in fact impact the mood for us as readers? So I just need you to kind of in your head mentally go, okay, do I remember these 4 literary terms and can I apply them to the short story? That's slide 5. Slide 6. So the other day it was raining out. It was just absolutely gross out. It was the perfect day to film and tape me reading this short story. So if you'd like to, there's a video on YouTube of Mrs. Sutton reading the short story to you. I also have the text up on my desktop. It's not huge, but you could listen and actually follow along too. So that's an audio version of me reading the short story. And then right here, I have an actual copy of the short story. All right. So let me just escape back out. Let me go back to my plan for the week. I'm asking you on Monday to complete slides 1 through 4. And then on Wednesday, I just need you to do slides 5 through 7. So that would, just give me my computer a minute here. That would bring you right up here to slide number 7, where you're just reading the story on your own. I really like this version of the story. It's kind of similar to the Telltale Heart version that we did, where you've got some questions and vocab on the side. So please don't ignore those annotations. You don't need to answer them, but they're actually, I think, will really help you as you're reading. So let me just click on the text itself. So you have a couple of options with a short story. Option 1, you can listen and follow along as Mrs. Sutton reads. Option 2 would be that you're just a story on your own. I know some of you would prefer that, and that's totally fine. So yeah, here's the copy. It gives you some facts about the author, which we've already covered. And then yes, here's the copy of the short story. And then this is what I was talking about right here. In the margin, it's got some questions and just some areas of focus. Take a look at them, especially the vocab. That might help you a little bit. But we used a similar text to the Telltale Heart just to help with the reading part. And that's actually all I need you to focus on this week for all summer in a day. We're just going to kind of familiarize ourselves with the author. We're going to do a pre-reading activity on what is science fiction, some guiding questions that seem a little weird, but will make more sense when you finish the short story. And then I just need you to read it and or listen to Mrs. Sutton. I would again ask that you please try not to go ahead. I know that'll be hard for some of you, but like I said, we're going to be doing we'll be doing this short story over the next several weeks. So there's really no need to rush. I'll be making a copy of all of this for you. They have asked us to post all of our instructional videos and materials by 10 a.m. on Monday. So Mondays and Wednesdays, any new material you will have for me by 10 a.m. Let me check my list. I think I've got everything. Yep, I think I have everything there. So again, just a quick recap. In this video, we've gone over our new grade book, our new kind of school schedule where you do not have to do every single class every single day. I've talked to you a little bit about please checking in on that SMORE newsletter. So that'll give you a snapshot of what the week is like. And then if any of you are struggling just getting work done, please just reach out to me. If you're confused, just say, Mrs. Sutton, I need some help with this. I would just ask that you get back to me. A few of you have asked to do Google Meets, and I've given you a few time frames, and then I don't hear anything. And so I assume that you've got your work done or you figured it out. But if you do want to set up a Google Meet, please just reach out. I hope you guys are all doing well. I can't wait to see you later on Monday morning. I plan on doing a Google Meet with all of our classes, so it'll be nice to see your faces and hear from you. Talk to you soon, guys. Enjoy the short story.